Okay, this video is how I did the simple pumpkin hat for my daughter. I used one strand of each of the yarn, but I would recommend if you want it more for warmth to use two strands or to find yourself a bulkier size yarn, because this is just a Red Heart brand, so as you can tell, it's pretty thin. But I was just doing this to see how it would come out. Okay, so to do this, it's only basically it's not too bad. Like I said, I worked this up over a couple days. It's very simple. Okay, if you've seen my other videos, you know that I use the drawstring cast off a lot. Or cast on, sorry. And that's what we're going to use for this. You're going to anchor it like we normally do on the anchor peg, and you're going to go back and forth creating the drawstring. And you're starting with the green color, and then we'll be cutting this and then doing in the orange color. So what this is going to do is, because this drawstring is as we're doing the green, we're only going to do it for a little ways, and then that way we'll switch to the orange, and then when we pull it close, it will create the effect on the top. So all we're doing is just keep track, make sure you're going back and forth, and when you get back to the beginning, and I'll show you this before we start the next part here. Okay, we're getting close to the beginning, so it should kind of look like this. I know it's hard to see with the green, and then all you're going to do is lay it in front of all the color, or the one you just did, and knit over wherever there's two. I've talked about this a lot, so if you need to, go to the video I talk about the drawstring cast on, and that probably will show you a little easier, because green on green is a little hard to show you. But like I said, this hat fits my 4-year-old if it might had, and this was just doing one strand and a tighter stitch. So that's all I'm doing right now, is I'm just taking wherever there's two, when I lay it in front, wherever there are two strands, let me see if I can see where I left off, wherever there's two strands, I'm knitting over. That's all I'm doing. I'm looking for where there's two strands, and I'm knitting over. Making sure the yarn is in front of the pegs, and looking for where there's two strands, and that's all I'm doing. And then from here, we're going to go right into the tight stitch, because it'll still do the drawstring effect without having to do any simple knitting rows. Okay, so that's all I'm doing, is working my way around, looking for where there's two strands, knit over, knit over, knit over. And that's what I love about this drawstring thing. It's really cool. I actually have, oops, I think I messed that one up a little bit. Okay. Oh, come on. A little tricky when you're doing stuff backwards, so let me hold this a little bit. Oh, come on. Does not usually fight me this much. There we go. And that's all I'm doing, is taking wherever there's two strands and moving it over. And I just like this because I think it just creates a different look to the hat. Let's see, okay. Alright, we're back to the beginning. Now we're just going to wrap it. I do the E-wrap method because it's just usually faster. If you have a different way you want to do it, go ahead and try it. Okay, so all we're going to do, because now we have our drawstring cast on ready, we still have the string anchored on the peg. We'll remove that and put it on the inside in a couple rows, because we want to make sure it's secure. So all you're going to do is kind of push down the work we just did. Give yourself the room. That's all I'm doing, is I'm pushing these down first so I have the room to wrap the yarn around. And then all I'm going to do is simply E-wrap around twice so that I can start creating the tight stitch. So that's all I'm doing, is E-wrapping around. Here. And you're going to go around one more time. So if you need to, so this is what it's going to look like. And we're going to kind of go around one more time so that we can create the tighter stitch. You may need to push them down a little bit to give you room to set it on there. Okay. So we're just wrapping it so that each peg will have 3 strands. And then what we're going to do when we get back to the beginning is we're going to knit the bottom strand over the top two. And that is what I call the tighter stitch. It might have a different name for it. I just call it the tight stitch. So all I'm doing right now is just wrapping that. Pushing the yarns down if I need to, just to give myself the room. Okay, so we're back to the beginning. Now, a trick you can do, okay, is when this is your starting peg. So this is where you would end normally. Go over there first and take the bottom one over the top two. That will secure your yarn in place while you're going around doing the rest. So what we're going to do here, excuse me, is we're going to take, now it's going to be a little tricky for me to see. We're going to take the bottom strand up over the top two. You should still have two strands on there, as you can see. So you're just going to go to the next one, take the bottom strand over the top two, bottom over the top two. I got the look, bottom over the top two. I might have missed a little bit of it, so grab it, okay? That's all we're going to do all the way around. Just grabbing that bottom strand to create the tight stitch. Now, it really depends on how big you want that green area to be on your pumpkin, how many times you go around with this colored green. I don't remember how many times I went around. This is more of a, here's how you kind of do it, and you can kind of figure out how long you need it to be for the size head you want to do it on. I mean, you could even use this technique to make a multicolored hat and just change the color out when you see fit. That's all we're doing. And we're going to do this for, probably a couple rows. And you're still not going to pull the string for the drawstring yet. We're not going to pull that string until we get the orange on there. The other loom you're going to need to do this is this loom too. It's what I use to make the stem. I use this side to make the stem. So if you've used that before, then you're pretty much going to kind of know what I'm going to do to make the stem. Now, if you want to get even more creative, you could try to do leaves, kind of like how I did on my flower video. I think the flower video I did with the stem that was in, when I put the tongue depressor inside, I made a flower and I had leaves on it. You could even do something like that and add the leaves to this project. So we're just going around. Do that one. A little tricky going upside down. Okay. Alright, so we went around. Now what you're going to do, or just what I like to do, is kind of get these a little pushed down, not too far, because you're only going to need to put one strand on. And what you're going to keep doing, at least for a couple rows or so, what I think I did with that one to get to the amount I went, is I kind of went with the green until, let's see, let me push all these down first. Makes it easier to show. I just kind of you don't have to push them all the way down, I'm just pushing them down so when I wrap it with the next color. Excuse me. So when you're looking at it on the inside, like I said, it's hard to see. What I kind of did, I believe, with the green is I kind of worked my way until it hit probably the bottom of this, but you don't need to. I mean, it depends on how much you want to be green on the top. I just chose to do it more. So we're going to go around and do the green a couple more times, and then I'll show you what to do with the next color. Okay, so I've gone around a couple more times. You can see where it is. And I'm just getting ready to kind of push them down. But what I can do now is I could take it off of the starter peg and kind of tuck it in the other side so it's on the right side that I need it for when I'm getting ready to pull. But you don't need to pull it right now. You're just going to let it kind of hang in there. I guess I have a really long string. So what I'm going to do, because I have such a really long string so early, is I'm going to cut it a little shorter now. You don't have to. It depends on how much you made it on there. But I know I'm not going to need that much, so I'm just going to cut that so it doesn't get tangled in. Okay, so now I got to add the next color, but kind of push these down a little bit if you haven't already. And like I said, it's up to you how many times you want to go around. And you can change up your stitches. You don't have to do this tight stitch. You can try doing a different stitch and see how you like that instead. Let me just show you like a mine. I did some of it was actually a chunky braid stitch up here a little bit. So we're going to switch color to the orange now. And all you're going to do to change your color is you're going to cut the green one that's on. Give yourself a little bit of a tail. And we're done with the green until we're ready to make the stem. And then all you're going to do is tie this down. Let's see what I'm doing. All I'm going to do is tie these two together. That's all you're going to do to make the new one go onto the old one. Excuse me. There we go. That's all I'm doing is I'm tying the new color onto the old one. I usually do it twice just to kind of secure it in there. Now you could, if you wanted to, excuse me, grab all these strands and wrap them around as you're doing it, but I didn't want to do that. So what I did is I kind of left them hanging and just looked for where I had the new color and only wrapped using that. And again, you're just going to go around. And what I did this time, I believe, I gotta look at it, because I believe this time I did what was called a chunky braid stitch. So I went around so that there'd be 4 strands on it. So just going around. And you're going to go around one more time, and then we're going to do a different stitch on this. This time we're going to do a chunky braid stitch. So we're going to go around so there's 4 strands on it. And you're going to lift the bottom 3 over the top one. It just gives it a little different effect. I mean, you don't have to. You can stick with the tight stitch. It's up to you. So I'm back to the beginning. It should look like this. And now I gotta find my tool again. Let's see what I said. I'm always good at losing this tool for some reason. Okay, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the bottom 3 and pass it around. And what I'm gonna do first is secure it on the end so that I can go around. So I'm taking those bottom 3, which you can see on my hook, and lifting them over the top 1. So you're only gonna be left with 1 strand. And push it down. So go around. You're gonna go around. You're gonna grab the bottom 3. You need to separate the irons a little bit. It makes it a little easier. The bottom 3. It's stubborn hang on it. It's usually not this stubborn. The bottom 3. There we go. Alright. So you're gonna take the bottom 3. Let me get them on my hook for you. Bottom 3 over the top one. And we will be able to fix the strings. Kind of just pull them inside. We'll be able to fix them. And there'll be a little extra loop, but that shouldn't hurt anything. You can fix that later. I mean, or what you're just going to do is make sure you tie them on tighter or closer to the peg. But then you're just going to find bottom 3 over the top one. And this should do what I think it's going to do. Okay, the bottom 3, top 1. So go around and do that till you get all the way back to the beginning. Excuse me. And you're still not going to pull that drawstring yet until we get a little further down. Because you don't want to pull it too soon because it's not going to work the way you want it to until you get the other colors down more. Now this is where you can decide whether you want to switch back to doing the tight stitch or if you want to continue doing a chunky braid stitch. Because you only have one strand on there now, so you need to figure out what you want to do. Okay, so from here, like I said, you need to choose whether you're going to do the chunky stitch or the tight stitch. And again, just to show you on this one, up here I did the chunky stitch a little bit, and down here I did the tight, so you can kind of see the difference. If you're using 2 strands, you might like the chunky stitch, or if you're using a bulkier yarn, you might like it as well. If you're using 1 strand, then I would probably recommend doing the tighter stitch. Again, it's not necessarily a warm hat, it's more like a decorative piece, I call it. So you would, if you want it to be warm, you would definitely want to get a bulkier yarn or use 2 strands. So I'm going to just do the tight stitch right now, so I'm going to wrap this 2 more times. So I'm just going to quickly wrap this 2 more times so that I can do my tight stitch. And then once we get it down enough, we'll pull it and you will see the effect that it will create. Okay, so there's 1 wrap, but we need to go around again if we're going to do a tight stitch. Because if you only do like a regular knit stitch, it's going to be a little too holy, I guess. So I would definitely, go between either the chunky or the knit, or the tight stitch, sorry. So I'm going around 1 more time, and then I'm going to do like we did in the beginning, where I take the bottom strand over the top 2. And that's all I'm going to keep doing until I get this hat the length that I want. But in a little bit, we'll be able to pull it, and you'll be able to see the top of the hat as it comes together for where the green is. Now, how long this hat's going to be is clearly up to you. It depends on the person you're making it for, the kid, how big you need to make it for their head. Like I said, this one kind of worked out pretty well for my daughter. I cannot tell you how many rows I did. But, so, a lot of it is just kind of eyeballing it. I don't usually keep track of stuff like that much. But if you want to make it for somebody, you would just have to keep track of it. So again, we're just going to go around and take, excuse me, the bottom, and move this down a little bit so you can see. We're just going to take, let me find my starting here, the bottom loop, over the top 2. And that's all you're going to do, so you still have 2 strands on there. So go around, take that bottom loop, and do it over the top 2. So that you're still left, when you look at it, you're still left with 2 strands on there. So go around and do that. I just thought this was really cute. I mean, I had a couple ideas on how to make it more like a jack-o'-lantern, but I think that will be the hat I try after this. I was going to try to add some black beads onto my yarn and figure out a way to position them so they would give the illusion of eyes, nose, mouth. So you could try that yourself too if you wanted, if you have any pony beads, and see how it would work. But for now, I'm just keeping it simple because that's what I like to do. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm just going to, like I said, you can change up your stitch if you want, but I'm just going to keep it as the tight stitch till I get to the end. And I'm hoping to get it down to where you can see the effect that it will create. That looks kind of cool when you pull it together, because I've never really done a drawstring cast on using 2 different strands of color. Okay, so like I said, now each of them has just 2 strands on them. So I'm going to pull them, push them down. And you can kind of peek. If you push this down, you push them all the way to the bottom. Excuse me. If you push them all the way to the bottom, and then you kind of sneak peek by pulling this back, you can kind of see, what it's going to do. I mean, we could do a little tug, so you can see how it's going to come together at the end. I don't want to tug on it too much until I get it the width I want. So I'm going to go around a few more times, doing the tight stitch, or doing whatever stitch you choose, for a little bit, and then I'll come back to show you about closing it off. And then from there, I'll just tell you what the next a couple steps are. Okay, I've been working on it for a few rows, as you can see, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the effect when I go to pull the string, as you've seen before with the drawstring. So we're just pulling that, and I'm going to set it down so I have a little better leverage. And you're going to see that it's going to start creating that. I haven't got it down far enough. But what you're going to do is you're going to keep going around, and then you're going to keep testing it by pulling on the string to see until you get it so that it is tightly closed so that it will create the top of the hat. So that's what you're going to do, is to get that so you can close it off, and then go from there, basically. Once you get that to close off, you're going to keep going around with whatever stitch you did until you get the length you want. What I'm going to do right now is take a breather from this and show you how I did the stem real quick, just because that part, this is a pretty simple process. If you have this loom, okay, make sure I have it. If you have this loom, there's two different sides. I've used this to make jewelry, I've used this side to make tube scarves, this side to make purse handles, and now to make stems on a hat. So I just take my green string that I had before. That's all I'm going to do is make a little stem. I want the string to be far enough to go down that I can grab it on the other side. So I'm going to kind of do my little slip knot. Place it on one of my little pegs. I figure this would be a little breather between that hat and that hat. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this string that's extra and just already put it in the inside so it's already sticking out the bottom. And then now the stem is basically how long you want the stem to be on your hat. And you're just going to work your way around as if you were doing a little purse handle with this loom as we've used it before. So just go around. And grab your crochet hook. And take the bottom strand. You're just doing a simple knit. It's just the bottom strand over the top strand. And this will work up pretty fast. And I'm just kind of give it a little tug, push down. Don't worry about tugging on the other string. And then just wrap again. And basically it's how long you want the stem to be. Now I would say what would be actually cool to do is if you almost had like a pipe cleaner, you could probably put a pipe cleaner down in there a little bit so that you could make the stem go which way you want. We're not doing a drawstring cast on. You could on this one, just like you did the other one, so you could close it off. But I would probably say you could do the pipe cleaner idea if you do a drawstring cast on this. I'm not doing that, so I'm not going to be putting the pipe cleaner in there. I did not put a pipe cleaner in the one that I made on that hat. That's just an idea that I had right now. So, if you want a pipe cleaner, do the drawstring cast on for this one. If you don't want the pipe cleaner, just do a simple knitting around like you would normally use this one for. And just push it down. I mean, you can give the string every now and then just a little tug. Okay, and we're just taking the bottom over the top. And this will work up pretty fast. And it's basically however long you want the stem to be. So kind of what you can do is kind of look through the other side and be like, okay, kind of getting an idea of where it is. I think when I did my other one, it kind of fell to about there when I looked inside. But again, it's however long you want it to be. Now this will not be attached until after we're done with the pumpkin hat. Then we'll attach this. I mean, you could attach it if you want. Which it might be good once you get this to close off. It might be good to attach this while it's a tight enough thing on there. So you can even do it after you close off the drawstring. It might actually be good to do it then versus when you get the hat all done. So I just did it after. I'll make sure this is long enough before I show you how I took it off. I know I'm a little off camera, but I'm just pushing them down, giving the string a little tug. It's not quite far enough for me yet that I would like, so I'm just going to keep working around. Okay. Stuff under there. I mean, if you wanted a bigger stem, then you could do a two-star one, but I thought this was a good size to do. Okay. I'm just going to make this long enough. I mean, again, do it as long as you want, but I'm just going to make it at least a little something and then show you how I take it off. And what you're going to do is you're going to use the strand of string you leave on as your way to attach it onto the hat. And we're going to cut off the beginning one. So we're just going to let it be a little stem today. So when you got the length that you want, what you're going to do is you're going to work on getting it down to being left on one peg. So what I usually do is I take this, you're going to look at it, and you're going to take one. I call it like the top of the star. It does look a little bit. You're going to take that, and you're going to put it onto one of the looms or pegs beside it. And then you're going to knit over. Then you're going to go to this side, and you're going to take this one and bring it over to this one and knit over. And this one over to this one. And knit over. So it looks kind of like that. You get down to 2. Bring this one over to this one. Knit over. Kind of get this little twist one. And then you're going to take this off the loop. You're going to cut yourself long enough strand to work with getting it into the hat as well. Then you're going to use your crochet hook to bring that strand that you have here through the loop that you took off the loom. And then pull it tight. So this is our little stem that we're going to put on the hat. Now this was the part that we had hanging down in between. So what you can kind of do is pick a little spot next to it and bring that string through, because you kind of want this to be closed off as well, and then create a little knot at the very end. Because you don't want it to obviously come undone. And then what you can do, since this is the top of it, is just trim that down. Because that won't really affect, the stem looking that weird anyway. And if you don't like that, then you can just kind of go in and hide it a little bit. I have issues with mine. But you basically want to make sure it's tied off. And then you can kind of go through and you can hide that little sticking out part in the project a little bit. Oops. Things are just not popping there. I don't think I left enough of the strand, but just make sure that it's tied off enough that it's not going to come apart on you. I might have had to knot it a couple times. I think I only did it once. So I would do it a couple times of knotting the top to really make sure that it's through there, bringing the string, through the stem a little bit. Leave this part alone. We're going to use this to attach it to the pumpkin hat when we're done. So now you can go back to this and get this so that it will close off. So I'm going to work a little bit more on this and come back when it's time to close this off and attach the stem while it's on the loom. Okay, we're back, and it's pretty much getting close to where I can close off this loop circle. I'm going to close that off, and then I'm going to add the stem while it's still taut enough to be able to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your green string that you have, and you're going to basically take your crochet hook, bring it up through under so you can see it. So I can bring it up through under, and I'm grabbing the string that I have there, and I'm pulling it back down to the bottom. And this will help close it off even more. Just give it a little tug. Then you're basically working your way back and forth so that it will close off that hole before we put the stem on. See, it's starting to close off. You could go around one more time. I'm just trying to not make this video be too long. Again, I'm just working my way through the back. Just trying to work my way around to make sure that it closes off that hole. No, it does not fight me this much, I'll tell you. Things just like to fight me when I want not to fight me. Alright. Let's try a different way. Okay. Pull that through. Slowly closing it off. I probably should go through one more time, around one more time, but you can see it's starting to close off. And that's all you're doing is kind of working on getting that hole closed off. So bringing your string back and forth from one side to the other just to kind of help close it off. And once you think it's closing off enough for you, you're going to stay on one side and work on tying it off. So when we get it to this side, that's how my string went. Okay, this seems difficult. Okay, we're going to reach through, grab that string, pull through the back. Now we're going to stay on the back side so we can close it off fully. So give it a little tug. See, it's pretty closed off, and now what you're going to do, excuse me, is kind of go next to it. Let me pull this down so you can see. What we're going to do is go next to it, wherever we can kind of get our crochet hook in, and we're going to pull that string through. We want to create a loop. And once you create that loop that you have, you can bring your string through it and kind of pull it so that it will close off tight. And you can do the same thing going in a different spot. Put your crochet hook underneath a spot, grab that string, create that loop. You see here, bring the string through the loop and pull it tight. Then what you can do is do another little, almost like you're doing a knot in it. Just kind of help secure it. And I might do one more just to make sure, because I've had that look today. More loop. And then you're pretty much done with this string. So you can cut it. Or you can leave it on there and tie the other, but I'm going to cut it like I would normally do. Now these strings were kind of loose. Like I said, when you do the changing of color, get it as close as you can to it. What you can do here, once I figure out where I get my hook here, with these strands that are kind of big, you can kind of hide them in the project as well. Kind of tucking them through, kind of hiding them in the project because they were a little too long. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach our itty bitty stem. So what you're going to do is, this is the outside of it, obviously. So you're going to start with it being on the outside, and this is going to create our little stem. I'm going to put it on now. Like I said, I waited before. Let me move this out of my way. I waited before to put on after, but we can do it now because I'm speeding up this tutorial. So after I get this on, I'm actually going to cast this off the way I showed you. What you're going to do is keep working until you get the hat the size you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up one more time. Try to get it in the most of the center as you can. And then you're going to pull that extra tail that you had on your thing, and you're going to pull it through. And see what that does is it'll make it stick up. But you need to bring it back through the other way as well. You need to come back up. And what we're going to do this time, just cooperate, is as the string is coming back up through, before we go back down to the other side, we're going to kind of bring it through the stem a little bit. We're just going to pick a loop kind of on the other side, like that, and we're just going to bring it through the stem a little bit before we bring it down. And we'll bring it down, through, and what that's going to do is kind of help the stem to have a little bit more shape of standing up or whatever. And now you can work back on this side. You're going to do the same thing we did for the drawstring. We're going to tie this off. So we're going to try to find a spot to work our crochet hook in and bring that string through. Okay, and we're going to create our little knot. Just want to make sure it's secure as much as you can. You're creating your loop and taking your string through it. Now what I'm going to do is just create a little knot like I do sometimes in the yarn. And then I'm going to show you how to cast this off so that you know when you get to that step. Excuse me. And when we're done, we'll snip the extra we want. Okay, so now we have our little pumpkin stem on there. Now, let me bring this back up. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to cast this off. But what you're going to do is you're going to keep working until you get the hat the length you want. So I'm just showing you how to take it off because I want to make sure this video is a little shorter. So keep working until you get it the deepness that you want. So you're going to keep working a little further. But unless you decide you want to make it, this might come out like a little baby hat when I get done with it. So you might even like the size for doing, if you want to do it for a little baby. We'll see how it looks when I get this off. So now we have to cast this off. We've made it as wide or as excuse me, as deep as we want. Like I said, this won't even fit on my head. You know, what I was doing last night is I kept putting it on my head to see kind of how far down it would go to give me an idea. I had a friend that smiled at me when she saw me do that because I did it on video. Yes, I'm a dork sometimes. So you can kind of do that to gauge like how much further you need to go. I don't know how many rows, like I said. You can kind of just eyeball it. You can compare it to another hat that you might have done that way. You know, see if it looks about the same. But when we get ready to cast it off, okay, what I like to do is I'm actually going to keep the two, maybe I kept two, yeah. I'm going to keep the 2 strands on there. Normally, I would go down so that I would only have 1 strand on the peg, but I'm going to leave it as the 2 for right now. Alright, now this is going to be a little tricky, so I got to see, I got to turn my camera down for you. Alright, what we're going to do now is make sure you have as much extra yarn coming off your skein so you don't have to be pulling out later. And we're going to do 3 chains in between each thing. This is our starting peg. Go behind it one. And then work backwards. Normally, if this is my starting peg, I work this way around the loom, and this is my ending. We're going to start at the first peg that you wrap. So if you're left-handed, whatever peg you first started wrapping is the one that you're going to start for ending, and you're going to go the opposite way than the way that you wrapped. And if you need it, you might need to borrow, or not borrow, but use your little hook to get the loops off the peg for the first one. And then put your crochet hook, whatever size you want. I mean, I'm using a G, but I just tend to favor this one no matter the size of the yarn. I don't know why. And then we're going to do 3 chains in between, 3 crochet chains. So let me get this down so you can see what I'm doing. We're grabbing the yarn and then we're bringing it through. That's considered 1. Now we'll do it again. 2. Grab it and bring it through. 3. And then you're going to pick up the next 2 strands and get them on your crochet hook. Okay? And then you're taking the back over the front. And now you're doing 3 chains again. So you got 1, 2, 3. And then you pick up your other ones. Okay? And then take the back loops you have over the front ones. And do your 3 chains. So you got 1, 2, 3. And we pick up our next one. And the back over the front. I mean, you may decide you want more than 3 chains in between. That is clearly up to you. You may decide you want to do less. I mean, a lot of it is just, you have to kind of play around with it. That's what I kind of don't like about patterns sometimes. Is what works for one person and the pattern they create may not work for everybody. If your head's a little different or stuff. So I'm doing 3 in between. You can try it to see how it works. 2, 3. And I do tend to count it out sometimes. But it's basically what works for you. And then got that on there. Front. And 3 chains. Like I said, you will keep the hat going as deep as you want before you do this step. If you know how to make any kind of eyes or whatever, you can add them to it too. I just figured keep it nice and simple for fall. One, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. And if you wanted to, since pumpkins can kind of have different shades of orange, you could do 2 strands and use some that's really like an orange, and maybe pair it with a slightly different color, maybe to give the pumpkin a different look to it, maybe. And the same way with the green, you could always pair this, a dark green with a light green and see how that looks to give it a little more depth to the pumpkin. You could try out different stitches to see and patterns to see if you can get like more ridges like a pumpkin would have. Like I said, I just kept it really simple because I know there's a lot of people that are just starting out kind of loom knitting like me. And it's always better to start with the simple products and then kind of tweak them as you get more advanced in your loom knitting. 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Get a rhythm going for that when you get these going. And like I said, I'm hoping you can see that I'm almost getting to the end. Of course, I'm just telling myself that. I'm probably not to the end yet. I mean, somebody even suggested doing ear flaps on it and making them kind of viney looking, which I think would be kind of cool. We're just working our way around. We're getting closer and closer to the end. And you can even do the same idea. Get red, make an apple. If you want to do an apple, do the same idea. That's what I love about figuring out what other stuff you can do on certain looms. Like I said, those spool looms. I've used that to make little flowers. I've used it to make jewelry. I've used it to make a lot of different things. So even though it might say, oh, this is used for that, figure out what. I mean, you can do a lot more things with the loom, not just what it says it can do. And you can try making little leaves if you want, and put them around the pumpkin. But this would be a cute like baby shower gift too for somebody that you know is going to have a baby in the fall. I think it'd be kind of cute and a little different than what other people probably would give at a baby shower. If you found something that was more like a themed thing, they probably would be like, oh, it's so cute. And this is the part that probably takes the longest, and that's why I feel bad this video is going to be long. It's just because I want to actually show you, let you see how long the process can actually take of going around and getting all the loops off and everything. And you might be able, like I said, you might decide only to do 2 loops. You might decide to do, I wouldn't do no loops or no crocheting in between because that would make it really tight. At least to me. But the best thing to do is just try it. Like before you actually make it, if you have any scrap yarn or something, go ahead and do like what I always do templates, I call them. When I'm getting ready to do a new project, I always call them templates because that way I'm playing out the idea to see if the idea will work. So I mean, don't be afraid to experiment first before you use your good yarn for a project. I mean, even though most of the time you can frog the project and get that yarn back, I just prefer just to do a practice run of something that I'm doing for the first time. We are almost to the end. The end is in sight. All I'm doing is just getting the loops off, back over the front, and doing my little chains in between. And I'm going to pick up the last group of pegs. As you can see, I'm getting to the last one. So I'm going to put that on the hook, and then I am going to get rid of my loom. And then take the back over the front. But if you notice, there's a gap. So what you're going to want to do is do your 3 chains. And then go over and grab a loop in between here so that you can close off that. Okay, and then what you can do is cut yourself some string, or cut your string. Now this is obviously not going to look like a hat because of it being not deep enough. And then you just pull that string through the loop you just created, and then make yourself a little knot there. That's what I just like to do. Secure it. Come off that. You need to. You could try hiding that little strand. Now, obviously, this is not a hat. You know, I will turn this into something, believe me. But that's what you would do. So keep in mind that you would be doing it for a lot longer. I mean, this will give you an idea here. Let's bring this up again. And to give you an idea, this is how I did, how long I did, and this is what we just did. So you definitely need to go further. If you want to make a baby one, what you could do, because this is so wide, because I did the 3 chains, like I would want to do for the big hat, is maybe cut down to doing no chains or 1 chain in between, and you could probably turn this into a little baby hat. It's actually pretty cute. And I will play around with this and turn this into something anyway. But what actually it looks like too is you could put something in the middle, and you could pretend it's a little flower if you want it upside down. But like I said, this I would, if I did this again to make a baby one, and using that same loom, if I didn't use a different loom, I wouldn't put as many chains in between. But again, I did 3 in between in order to make it work for this hat. But there you go. That's how you do a little simple pumpkin hat, and feel free to play around with it. And don't hesitate to post pictures on my Facebook page of your pumpkin hats. Thanks for watching.